And welcome back, and we're just about to start this particular show on a high. Welcome, my name is Victor Oloo, and as I promised, we are going to talk about cohesion. That is what's going to be happening in the country as we are approaching the next general election. We all know how it happens, but you know what? We have to keep tabs on whatever we say, because whatever you say will affect another person. And according to the National Cohesion and Integration Commission, they have been mandated to make sure that what you say is used against you, either in court of law or otherwise. I'm joined by one gentleman, Reverend Kobia, who is here. Daktari, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Victor.
Karibu sana, and Ali.
Asante sana. No, it's good.
Right.
I'm happy to be here this morning.
Absolutely. Welcome to the program once again. It's been hard to get you. You're a busy man.
well, that's how it is these days.
Yes.
As Kenyans are preparing for elections, as you see, it's amazing when I talk with many people.
Yeah.
They say Kenyans start their campaigning for elections a whole year before the election. So we are already in electoral mode season, and that's why we are kept very busy.
How is your day like? Anytime you wake up in the morning, do you get those messages like, today is going to be a busy day for me at work?
Yes, I do.
Right.
And, you know, every day there's no doubt that there's something happening that requires our attention. And so the first thing I do is to get a brief on what has been happening in the previous day.
Yeah.
And then I look forward to what's going to happen during the day so that I can prepare well enough. And then, of course, there are times when you have something you didn't expect.
Yeah.
And when it comes, you have to attend to it.
Perhaps people just, when they see you, when they hear the National Cohesion and Integration Commission, one thing that, you know, rings in somebody's mind is about hate speech. But I believe NCIC, you have a lot to do as a commission, just about, apart from just handling hate speech. To that common mwananchi out there, what are some of the roles of NCIC?
Well, you see, as you say, Victor, when the average Kenyan hears NCIC, all they know is hate speech. And in fact, I remember one of the newspapers reported that His Excellency President Uhuru Kenyatta appoints Reverend Kobia to head the Hate Speech Commission.
The Hate Speech Commission, I remember that.
You know, hate speech is not even 10% of the mandate of NCIC. Yeah. Because you remember, NCIC was created after 2007, 2008 electoral violence. Yeah. With the main objective, I would really summarize it as to help Kenya not to experience the 2002-2008 again. Yes. So, and for that, you know, we have a huge mandate, one of which is to help to deal with those who create disharmony, who create conditions or situations where cohesion, peace, and harmony is absent. And when you look at that, one of the things we do is to help Kenyans to integrate as a people. But one of the areas that we are really mandated to do, which is not very well known, is in dealing with the violent conflicts that are going to lead to a possible violence in any part of the country, whether it is related to differences in religion, differences in ethnicity, differences in race. So one thing is to help the country to bring people of different traditions and identities, whether those identities, whatever it is, to be together. But then another one which is very important is to deal with the inequalities.
Inequalities, something that has affected this country for quite some time.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah. Particularly the differences in access to opportunities and the services. And for that reason, we also deal with the way even county governments are established. Because according to the Constitution 2010, a county is expected to have in its establishment 30% of people who do not belong to the majority ethnic community there. Today is not happening.
Right.
And then the institutions too are expected to have diversity in their employment. And we have we surveyed a number of universities, and we found that they all fell short of that expectation. But quite a good number of them, including University of Nairobi, have improved. So today we have seen that they have increased in terms, because universities are supposed to have everybody. No one particular ethnic community is supposed to occupy more than 25% of employment. So these are some of the areas that we are supposed to deal with.
Yes.
And therefore, when it comes to elections, we decided to start very early this time round. And so on 10th of December of 2020, we launched our roadmap to violence-free elections 2022, which we call Roadmap to Election Bila Norma.
Bila Norma. Right. We'll talk about that one briefly. But what keeps you awake every single night you go to bed? You are in a commission that anything that goes wrong in this particular country, the whole nation will point their fingers at you. What keeps you awake at night, Dr.
Well, it is true, the expectations that Kenyans have on us
is a lot.
Expectations are very high. We have mapped the country into particularly what we call hot spots.
Yes.
These are those parts of the country where you could expect violence to flare anytime. So anytime, really, I go to bed, I'm wondering, what is it going to be like in Marsabit, for example? What is it going to be like of course, now we have seen Laikipia, what is happening there, or West Pokot, or Narok. So that is something that keeps me awake. The second one is when I know that in most cases, those who are responsible for violence are the young people. And so the question I ask is, how can we, in any particular and all parts of the country, help the young people to know that it doesn't pay? Violence doesn't pay. And so the expectation is that we can work with other institutions and organizations to reduce the chances of young people being recruited as goons, because, and especially now with elections coming, we know many of them,
they become vulnerable,
beginning to be, and what we are saying is that even the young people themselves who end up being recruited as goons, we will also go after them, because actually we have now equipment that can spot out the goons who are causing violence.
Really?
And therefore, therefore we go after them. That's what happened in Matungu and Kapchai. Because we were able, including, you saw those who were frog marching the IEBC
officials there during the by-elections, right?
We went after them, and we were able to find them, particularly with the help of DCIA.
You came to the office at a time when the country was bleeding. The country was torn in between, tribes, the religion, color, all manner of facets of our community. But then now, even your predecessors, they laid the foundation. And here you are, you got into the office at a time when this country is also heading to another election. What are you doing so that we can have that peaceful transfer of power and election, so that after voting, I go home, watch the results, and go home and say, the best team has won, the loser will accept,
yes,
as NCIC?
Kenya, over the years, has created what I call a subculture of violence as far as elections are concerned. So one of the things that we are trying to do is to see how we can transform that culture of violence to a culture of peace. That transformation is what I would say will help this country in terms of changing the attitude, because before even violence flares, already there is attitude, whether it's ethnic contempt, ethnic profiling, or attitude that the one who does not belong to my party or is an opponent is an enemy, and therefore can be fought. A change of attitude is important because that is what will lead also to change of behavior. Right. And without a change of attitude and a change of behavior, it's not going to be very easy to deal with the issue of electoral violence. Therefore, in our elections bill and norma, one of the areas we are going to concentrate on is in sensitization of the electorate, and particularly, as I said, the young people. But the second one, we are going to work with the political parties and the leadership of political parties. Do they even cooperate with you, Daktari? Yes, they do. Right. In our elections bill and norma roadmap, we have planned for a series of symposia. We will have actually 7 symposia before June of 2022. The first one is to bring together leaders of major political parties. And what we wanted to do is to have them sign a political decency charter. Now, we have announced that this is going to happen. Victor is amazing. Every leader of a major political party, and even not so major, is telling us, don't leave us out. Tell us we wanted to come and we wanted to talk together. So they are actually listening to us and they are cooperating with us. So it's good to see that, and it's very encouraging. Do you see a situation where this country, the youth, where, my category, our people out there, any election cycle, they are on the front line, because perhaps politicians realize that they're biggest voting bloc. So they take advantage of the youth. How do you incorporate youth in this kind of discussions? Whenever you have a discussion with the politicians, with the faith-based organizations, how do you include the youth so that when you talk about attitude change, they get it firsthand? Yes. One of the symposium that we are going to have is with young people. We are working with the Vijana Bila Ukabila. Vijana Bila Ukabila. Vijana Bila Ukabila is a very, I would say, really is an example of how young people of Kenya should be behaving. They say, Nina Kabila, lakini sina ukabila. So these young people, 6 of them, they are the ones who walked from Eldoret to Mombasa, and on their way back, I received them in Nairobi, and we have talked. They are ready to be our ambassadors everywhere. And what we have agreed with them is that as we prepare for the symposium with young people, they will go to all the regions talking about elections bila noma and vijana bila ukabila. So this is one of the groups we are working with. The other one is there's quite a number of youth organizations who have actually reached out to us, and they say, what can we do to work with the Ncic in preparation for the elections 2022 so that we can reduce the chances of violence.
Yes.
Some of these are students, others are youth organizations, generally within the civil society. But this one, Vijana Bila Ukabila, are really our ambassadors that we are sending out. And as we talk now, they are in fact busy. You know,
what is the response like?
The response is very interesting. The response is very encouraging. It's very positive, and that is why I'm quite confident that we are likely to have elections that will not be as violent as it has been in the past.
Reverend, you launched a public wall of shame some time back as a way to combat hate speech and all that. But we've never seen anybody posted on the wall of shame. You know, we'd be waiting to see my name there, my colleague's name there. We've never seen. How are you intending to work so that each and every person, if you're accused of hate speech, your name appears on the wall of shame?
Yes, yes, we published a wall of shame and a wall of fame. Yes.
I hope to find my name there on the wall of fame. Right.
You are not likely to be on the wall of shame.
I believe so. Right.
But hopefully you can make it to the wall of fame.
Right.
And you see, what is known basically is that Ncic has a wall of shame. But before I talk of the wall of shame, let me say that we have also been following very closely the behavior of politicians. And we have, I can actually mention two who are on our wall of fame, because that one is okay, because they,
maybe you can mention them. Maybe you can mention them, yes, perhaps to encourage.
Abdul Karim Omar is a MP for Fafi in Garissa. The reason we put him on the wall of fame is because in a public rally, where one of our commissioners was present, his supporters really trying to push him and to provoke him to say I would say to attack verbally, to attack his opponents, and they were ready to be told, even if it meant physical violence. You know, Mheshimiwa Abdul Karim said, look, I'm not going to say any, or rather I'm going to be involved in hate speech against my opponents. However much you push me, I will not do that, even if it means me losing the next elections. I mean, to have a politician, a member of parliament, no less, saying that is very, very encouraging. So we have put him on the wall of fame. Then we have another member of parliament of Joro, Mheshimiwa Kadhambi.
Yes.
Kadhambi is one of those who, in fact, Kadhambi, who is originally from Meru, married, in Nakuru, and she was elected in a place where the majority are not people from her ethnic community. Yes. And she has really continued with that work, and therefore the way she has been working with the women, with the young people, with the elderly, etc., is exemplary, and that is why we put her on the wall of fame. Now, we have 6 on the wall of shame. I'm not going to mention those by name.
we have to balance wall of shame.
No, because you see, what we are doing with the wall of shame is any person, whether politician or otherwise, who make it to the wall of shame 3 times will then be put on the wall of shame permanently. Currently, there is none.
Yeah.
And what is interesting, Victor, is that when I first announced that we'll have a wall of shame, many, including, commentaries and even one column in a major newspaper said, forget it. Kenyan politicians don't care.
Yeah.
You can put them on the wall of shame. In fact, some of them would like to be on the wall of shame so that this will become famous.
Yes. Put me on the wall of shame and I will become famous.
Yeah?
Yes.
Now, it was discouraging to hear that. But actually, hate speech has decreased significantly since then. I have a number of those that we had summoned who have come to us and say, please tell me what I can do in order not to be put on that wall of shame.
That is interesting. Coming from our Kenya politicians?
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Okay.
And they say, look, I'm a father, I have children, I have a wife, so I wouldn't want them to know that I'm on the wall of shame. Others are members of professional, bodies, and for them to be known by their professional association,
right,
that they are on the wall of shame. They said, I'll do anything. And actually, those who entered that wall of shame in the first place, they haven't repeated the hate speech. Now, the biggest challenge we have, Victor, is to deal with hate speech on social media.
Okay. Reverend, we take a very short break, and when we come back, I'm still interested on this wall of shame, because from where we are right now, the drumbeats of election and politics is sounding from afar, and we can hear it. People are drumming the drums. What qualifies hate speech? Hate speech, is it physical? Is it even verbal? Is it even on social media? And how are you curbing it? All right, we're talking about much more when we come back with Reverend Kobia here, who is the chairperson of the National Cohesion and Integration Commission. We are taking a break. We'll be right back. Usende mbali, ndio tunaanza tu. All right? Okay.
Categories, that's when it goes.
All right, and welcome back. We are still having, behind the scenes talk with the Reverend here, Samuel Kobia, chairman of the NCIC, the National Cohesion and Integration Commission. Daktari, before you took a break, we talked about the issue, the drumbeats of elections are fast approaching, and just across the mountain, the drumbeats are getting louder and louder and louder. The question that Kenyans will be asking themselves is that we've never seen anybody prosecuted because of hate speech. Are you intending to prosecute one person one day and say, this person has been prosecuted and he or she has been barred from an elective position?
Yes, it is true that we don't have many who have been accused of hate speech being prosecuted now. We have, in the history of the NCIC, we have had quite a few, I think up to 4, who have actually been convicted. That was before my time.
Right.
Now, what makes it difficult is actually the process. When NCIC summons a person who has crossed, I would say, the line, because hate speech is when a person utters words that are injurious emotionally or psychologically to another person because they belong to a different ethnic community, different religion, or different race. So that is why sometimes Kenyans wonder why NCIC did not arrest politician B because they said something about another individual. but sometimes it doesn't measure up to the threshold of hate speech. Now, what we do is we summon, people write statements, we investigate, and we decide based on the evidence that this person has committed, this offense. When we are satisfied with that evidence, we hand them over to the DPP. And then prosecution is in the hands of DPP.
Right.
We cannot prosecute as it is ourselves. The DPP will take them to court. So really it's now between the prosecutor and the magistrate or the judge. Ncic is no longer involved at that level. But there is also another step that we do. Sometimes when we summon offenders, they come, they make statements, they realize, because sometimes they might have said what they said at the spur of the moment. They say, I was provoked, Then they say, look, I'm prepared to really talk about this so that I will not repeat it.
Does this frustrate your job? Because they will always find a way to, get away with hate speech.
What happens is we then employ what we call mediation, because it is also allowed in the Act. And in fact, that is what sometimes we prefer, because this is what will help one to change the attitude, as I talked about, attitude change. And once they are remorseful, and they are genuinely remorseful, it is then possible that we will have a mediation, and they are not going to be prosecuted. So majority of those who have offended this particular act, that is how we end with them. But currently we have I would say anything upwards to 50 to 60 who are now either being investigated or they have been handed over to DPP. Now, what we are trying to do, because we really want to be effective as Ncic, because we have seen how frustrating it is to go through this process. When I became the chair of Ncic, I found that we have cases that have been there for 2 years, now 3 years, they are still pending. Now, there is in Parliament a bill that is being debated, and one of the things we are seeking in that bill is to empower the Commission to create a tribunal to deal with hate speech.
And that brings to my next question, that do you think you should be given the prosecutorial powers as Ncic?
At the moment, although previously we have been saying, and in fact we have been pushing for Ncic to be given prosecutorial powers, but then the Constitution is very clear. It's only DPP who can prosecute. So what we have decided to do is to work very closely with the DPP, like we are doing with the DCIA. So that, because the DCIA seconds experts who actually are very good at investigation. So we have them as part of Ncic. With DPP, we are also approaching them to say we can identify prosecutors who, even if it means special training, they are also training and they become part of us. And then we have talked with the new Chief Justice, and we have said, could we have a division within the High Court that can be dealing with the cases of hate speech? So you see, when we work as a team like that, any one particular individual could have several charges, and we work together, and we say that we have a time limit. By this time, we should have done the investigation, prosecution, and the determination in court. So that is what we are planning to do. The reason we are asking for a tribunal is, if we have a tribunal, then we say within 6 months, of that offense, then prosecution and judgment should be done. That is why we are thinking the way of tribunal will be good. But at the moment, we have this multi-agency platform that we have created, and we are working really well with them. So this is how we are approaching the hate speech.
Absolutely. Reverend, you launched a booklet here, A Violence-Free 2022 Election Bila Norma Roadmap. This sounds like it's been simplified to a local mwananchi election bila norma.
Yes,
it's something we easily understand. Were you trying to communicate to the youth through this booklet?
Yes.
Yes.
Youth are a major target of this. And as I said, we intend to have a national symposium that, with young people. So we are targeting young people here. And we would even want to have a popular version of it that would even have the language of young people, whether it's Sheng or maybe some sections of this in Kiswahili. So, and it has been received very well.
Right.
So we are happy with the way generally this booklet has been received.
From the booklet here, there is roadblocks to a peaceful election in Kenya, and one of the roadblocks is lack of trust, subculture violence. We have got divisive and selfish politics. Politics had to land there.
Yes.
We have ethnic polarization, untimely and inadequate response to conflict, structural and inequalities. Yes. But one thing that brings me here is the subculture of violence. Violence doesn't have to be physical, Dr.
No, indeed, violence doesn't have to be physical. And in fact, violence that is verbal, that is why in the Act, NCI Act 2008, which created Ncic, ethnic contempt is actually one of the main areas that we deal with. Ethnic contempt and ethnic profiling. If you look at the history of violence that has been created through ethnic contempt, that is even what led to the genocide in Rwanda.
The Hutus and the Tutsis.
Absolutely.
Right.
You see,
when another group was referring to the other as cockroaches.
As cockroaches.
Right.
Mandoadoa, that kind of thing. And that is why in Kenya we have to be very, very careful. The language that is used against the others. Because that is what led in 2007 to, Mandoadoa, this, that language. And we are even now, Victor, we have identified some situations where we want even to decode.
Right.
Because people can use code language.
To send a message.
To send a message.
Right.
And especially on the radio, FM. Local languages. This is where a lot of language utterances that border on hate speech are now being kept.
Right.
Because many have migrated from platform, political platform to social media.
Yes.
So that is why we are dealing with that. So subculture of violence related to elections in this country has really been there for a long time. In fact, in most cases, elections have led to violence. And that is why we have seen that one way of resolving conflict, especially politically related conflict in Kenya, is through violence.
Right.
That is why it has become a subculture, and we want to deal with that head on. And as we say, that violence which is not physical, but which denigrates, which lowers the dignity of another person because they belong to a different ethnic community or race or religion, that is really what we wanted to deal with, and that is why we have it as one of the major roadblocks in elections.
Have we learned? Are Kenyans changing as a people? Do we have that mindset that the attitude you're going to change today, because come next year, that is why we're having this kind of conversation this particular morning, because Have we changed, Doctor?
Now, let me say this, Victor, that I think there is a bit of change that we have seen. Now, whether it's change that is likely to lead to that attitude change and then behavior change, we are yet to see. Now, one of, as you see in the booklet,
right,
one of the things we are doing now is to have a national cohesion index. That is what will help us to know whether there has been change. This is already in the process. The last time there was a national cohesion index actually done by Ncic was 2013. You know, so we realized that it's time for us now to do a national cohesion index. So this is what will help us to know how much Kenyans have changed when it comes to resolving political differences peacefully and not through violence.
Daktari, as we can never distinguish between politics and hate speech, because that is now where we are heading to. Politicians in Kenya have mastered that art of, insulting. The more I insult my opponent, the more, votes I will amass. But then you said you have deployed a lot of mechanism to make sure that you'll pick them from their hideouts and prosecute them. Does this really ring a bell in our politicians' ears that come 2022, it's going to be peaceful, the commission is busy, that even after the elections, we'll see 2-3 people in the dock and they're being charged or barred from office?
What we think will be effective is if we can come up with the criteria for determining candidates for elections. What the politicians fear the most is to be barred from
running for a post.
And that is why we are targeting that. That is why we created the wall of shame, because we said once we have one on the wall of shame, we will talk with the IEBC, with the party leaders, and really say this person is not decent enough, politically decent, and therefore should not run for office. And then we will approach the government to say that this person should not also be appointed to a national position. And if that happens, even politicians will think twice. Furthermore, we are engaging the diplomatic community here in Kenya. I had a breakfast meeting with the 15 ambassadors and high commissioners, and I shared with them about this, elections bill and norma, and particularly this area of wall of shame. And I said, look, when Kenyans commit economic crimes, corruption, etc., and it's really known, they don't get a visa to Europe or to America. But I said, here you could have an individual, a politician, whose words will cause violence and even death of people. Why should that person be given a visa to your country? They said they will be prepared to consider not to give visas to such people. So our list is not going to end just with us and with the political parties, but also internationally. So we want to make it extremely difficult for a notorious politician being accused of hate speech and ethnic contempt and ethnic profiling to actually run for office. And that is why the first national symposium we are going to have is with the leaders of registered political parties. And we want them to sign a political decency charter. One of which, in terms of criteria, is that they will themselves not give not clear their individual members to actually run for office.
Yes.
And if we work together, we work together with them, we work together with the DCIA, EACC, and IABC, you know, there will be ways that really such persons will not be cleared to run for office. To me, that is what really will make the politicians think twice before they act.
But somebody would say that some of these politicians are your good friends, and you know, you can easily talk and say, you know, Daktari, I'm sorry, that's what happened during that heated point of argument, and they'll walk away with it.
No, this time round, they will not walk away with it.
They're your friends. You meet every day, right?
Yes, exactly. But we have, and this is where we are talking of a subculture of violence. Yeah. It's also a subculture of that attitude, you know, because we should differentiate between, say, a provision in law or act, like NCIA Act. Once it provides that a person who has behaved in this manner cannot be or should be prosecuted or whatever, whether they are personal friends or not, we have to accept that's how it is. That's why we are talking of political decency.
Yes.
Yeah. Let me say one other symposium, national symposium we are going to have, which I think has never happened in this country before, is with the border.
Right one.
Yes. We're in touch with them because we have realized, you know, border has become part of our culture.
And part of our economy.
And part of our economy.
Yes.
And borders are the ones that can reach everywhere in the country. And we realized that they are the ones who are being used sometimes by politicians to ferry people to go and, attack their opponents.
Yes.
But border also can be part of intelligence.
Yeah.
I was told that borders are being used by Al-Shabaab to recruit young people to, you know, and this has happened. It's not a fiction. Because they engage people in a conversation. Yes. They know that this family has a young person who completed, university, doesn't have a job, and so forth.
Somebody said that borders have a lot of information.
A lot.
Yes.
Exactly. Yes. So they even know what is happening in those places where they take people. Yeah. So we realized this, we need really to bring them together, and they also should sign even a charter to say they are going to contribute to elections bila norma. Because if they commit themselves to that, I think we will now begin to address this subculture of violence that we have talked about. So we want it to be unconventional in our approach to really delivering violence-free elections.
There's an amazing booklet here, and I promise to take a look and read it properly.
Please.
But let me ask you, Daktari, what's the future of this nation like? When you sit and, as a reverend, anytime you go on your knees and you pray for this country, what is the future of this country like? You move from the pulpit and dealing, it's like the entire heart of the nation is in your hands. When we go into violence, we look at where is the NCIC. That politician said that, NCIC, where are you? What is the future of this nation like from where you sit?
Kenya is an amazing country.
Absolutely.
Very gifted, talented individuals, communities, professions, etc. Because when I look at this country, and I have traveled the world and Africa. When I say the world, it's literally the world. When I was General Secretary of the World Council of Churches. And so in Africa, I would say Kenya has no match.
Really?
Oh, yes. Not only economically, but in terms of what the country as a nation, where we are yet to be a real nation. We are still a country. The imagination, the creativity, etc., etc. Look at M-Pesa.
It's big. It's worldwide.
In the whole world, there's no other. Look at border that we have talked about. But not only that, if the imagination and the creativity that Kenyans have can be directed to positive things and not negative things. One thing that, as I say, Kenya is amazing. After Corona was, after the pandemic was announced, some Kenyans knew that there's a lot of money there. They create companies. Before you know it, they have billions. Can that be put to positive? And that is why I say, to the extent that Kenyans can change that attitude, and particularly here, even with the young people, because I remember a couple of years ago, there was a survey that showed that young people these days, what they want is to get rich quick, that they actually don't mind the wealth, provided that you have it, they don't care how you got it, attitude. Now, if we can change that attitude from, the bad things to good things, Kenya will go very far. And I have a lot of hope for this country.
Absolutely.
And that is why I feel that the kind of national conversation, national dialogue that we are planning now should go even beyond 2022. In the booklet, we have said we want peace on the way to, in the run-up to, during and after the election. So I think we need to begin to, to have this conversation so that we can say, how can we change that attitude? And it is in all stations of life. Yes, whether it is business, or it is religion, it is, politics, all of it should be so that we have, when I was in Ncic a long time ago, perhaps before you were born.
Ncic, right, I remember Ncic.
Yes, we started a national conversation on the Kenya we want. And it did very well, and it was picked up by civil society, even by government. Today, I would say we should be talking of the Kenyan we want. What kind of Kenyan do we want? So that is part of, that should be the target now. Not only just the Kenya we want, because the Kenya we want could be the GDP of this, that, but it has, millions of poor people. So is the Kenyan we want. And the Kenyan we want is one who certainly would hate violence and not, be involved in violence. Is the Kenyan who certainly minds the welfare of their neighbor, etc., etc., but a Kenyan who would do everything they can to make this country and even our politics decent. And this should start at nursery, from home, actually, as children, to nursery school.
Absolutely.
In fact, the school curriculum should include, part of part of what's it be, ethics, work ethic, because work ethic in this country is very poor. So it's all walks of life, all fields of life. If we have that, and then we say this is the Kenyan we want. I think we'll go very far.
Dr. I'm afraid we've run out of time. Promise me that we'll have another conversation anytime we call on you, and you'll come. We can never talk about this enough. We'll always talk about it over and over and over again. We really appreciate your time.
I'm available, of course, to when it is convenient for me.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you so much. We've been talking to Reverend Dr. Samuel Kobia, who is the chairman of the National Cohesion and Integration Commission. We've been talking about hate speech and what we need to do. That is on Eye on Politics. We are not done yet. Up next, that is the gentleman I'm going to talk to. That is Reverend Archbishop Jackson Ole Sapit. We are going to have a conversation in the next minute. Stay around.